Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we are in season 3 of educating and talking all different things wellness, fitness, anything healthy related. I am Jeremy. I'm your host here today with my co-host, partner in crime, Mr. Jeffrey Reno.
Going on, sir?
It is a day. Let's just leave it at that. So, missed a flight / cancel flight, whatever you want to call it, a little readjustment of the schedule. So it is what it is, right? Either I'm getting some work done here at home, or I'd be getting work done in an airport. So I guess it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. Home is much nice. It's kind of like you. Like I like living somewhat close to the airport. Like
Yeah,
a few minutes away, if something like that happens, you can go home.
yeah, just adjustment. So instead of early morning flight, it's more of a midday flight, which we'll get out and get taken care of. But other than that, it's a great day. I've got we had the church service on Sunday was awesome, and it was a Mother's Day, and they were just talking about some of the pasture or some of the how can I start over? Pastures. It's not pastures, is it? Jeez. Passages. There we go. I forgot this is going to go in that class, so maybe don't need as much of the intro at the beginning. All right, restarting.
Yep.
Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast. I am Jeremy, your host. I am here today with my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Reno. How's it going?
Morning, good sir. It is. It's going well.
Going well. I like it. I like it. A little hiccup in my schedule today. We're supposed to fly out early, but it's more of a midday flight now. But that's okay. We'll make adjustments and we'll roll forward.
Absolutely, like always.
Like always. Hey, I got off the phone with our sponsors of the podcast, or like we like to call them our partners of the podcast. They are doing well. Summit Rejuvenation just opened a clinic down here in Florida, over in Jacksonville, Florida. And of course, we are priming the pump of love to start one up here in Tallahassee is the goal for that. But any the listeners out there looking, to experience or experiment with some of the peptides, remember, we always encourage that you are getting prescription grade or getting an RX from a physician rather than buying something offline that is for research purposes only. I think that's the big takeaway, Reno, that I'm seeing a lot right now on social media is peptides are hot, but people are still just buying them off a website for the research purposes only and not going through, unfortunately, clinics or physicians to get the prescription.
Yeah, and then you run into those verification sheets proving what's in it, and it's just like you can't just like I could type up, you could stuff. So it's really good that you have someone like Summit that is doing all of that research and making sure you are getting a clean, healthy formula.
And a couple of questions come in. You do not have to be on hormone replacement therapy or using them for, HRT, et cetera, to order peptides, but you do need to set a consult up with them to become a quote unquote client. And then you can order those peptides based on need. So just kind of want to cover that information as we're diving into today. But hey, we were in church service on Sunday, and I've been building this course on coaching. And of course, in the past, 5 to 6 years, moved more into coach the coach. And the topic that they were discussing it was on Mother's Day, was of course parenthood and some of the stages of parenthood. And as they went through it, it was a direct link to like what I've been thinking of the stages of coaching, right? And inside this class, I've been teaching about the expert in us as clinicians, is okay, I go to school, I learn to be a dietitian, I learn to set up meal plans, I learn sports nutrition. So I'm the expert in that, right? That's the term I put out there. Now I'm doing quotations because I think you agree with this. I think it takes a long time to be an expert. I still sometimes have a hard part being like, I'm an expert in nutrition because I feel like I'm always learning. And I feel like there's so much to learn, but what we're using the term expert is, okay, you know your information and you present the information to a client or you present the information to a group and they go out and run with that information. In the terms of that, that's what we're saying an expert is. Because would you put a title expert on you when it comes to filming and, photography, or would you be like, man, I'm still learning?
I guess I'm always learning because I just went to a very, very entry level Army course and I did learn new things at that thing. I would call myself a subject matter expert just because that's the easiest term.
Yeah.
But no, I wholly agree with that. Is like, I think we're enough to be dangerous and we can make a massive difference because of how much we know. But then if you sit me down in front of a Hollywood director, like I'm going to look like a newbie, just like
Yeah.
maybe you, if you get set in front of, I don't name someone for you, it would be like, oh, this guy knows a lot.
Yeah. So I think that's normal, right? I think it is, one of the things is, and I'm not saying like you get out of school from a coaching standpoint. So you graduate, whether it's exercise phys degree or dietitian degree, or maybe you got your training certificate. It's not that you don't know information. You can't go out and serve and help people. But it is a adjustment to go from that expert stage to a coaching stage, where coaching, you're not just giving plans, you're working with the individual, and you're working with the whole individual, taking in their work environment, their home environment, social cues, everything that goes on with the individual, and trying to get them to make changes on their own, making them be over their journey, right? And then of course, like, I think about this with the people in the first format. I've got people that's been on there 5 or 6 years, and they don't use me that much, but the occasional question, right? So they just, maybe something comes up. For example, we mentioned the peptides earlier. I'm getting a lot of questions from people who, have lost weight, maintaining their weight, they're doing well, but they'll have, hey, Jeremy, I've seen, this on, BP 157 can help with, tendon repair, joint pain. These clients are a little bit older anyway. So, they're asking kind of those questions about peptides, right? But they're still maintaining their weight. They're still doing well inside of their wellness. So that's kind of what I would consider, a consultant phase, where people are still reaching out. They don't need me as a coach, but they still view me as someone who's knowledgeable and they can reach out to if they don't know the answer to a certain question.
Yeah, I like to call that, and I'm sure you obviously heard the term, but like a framework. Once you have the foundation of a house,
Yeah.
you got your, like you mentioned earlier, like kind of left and right limits, your top and bottom. Like, okay, this is my box I can stay in, but there's a lot of room. It's not a small box. There's a lot of wiggle room in this framework that we can work around in and really make a difference with the knowledge that we have.
So with the intent of this, I know I've got a lot of people, who listen to the podcast that's in their wellness journey. So you can wear the cap of in your wellness journey when we're talking about this today, because I think it's going to be very important for you. But also if you're a young coach learning how to coach, and you've been listening to the podcast to pick up on, some tidbits of what I do with my clients, this is going to help you out tremendously, in the sense of like what the progression looks like. And then last but not least, we're going to relate it to parenthood. So maybe if you're a young parent, it'll relate to that side point, because I think there was so much parallel in that. Okay. So if we look at, kind of the framework or stages, of parenthood, you have your nurture stage, which is during infancy, right? So you're really, like I said, trying to keep the kid alive, just, from that standpoint, you're nurturing. Okay. Now that doesn't really have, a place over here in the coaching, standpoint, but the next one does. And in parenthood, it's called authoritative or boundary setting, which totally makes sense, right? So you got toddlers who don't understand things, right? They're learning fast, but they just don't have the cognitive ability to, once again, make decisions, take care of themselves. We have to set those guidelines, provide those left and right boundaries so that they can have success. And then I translate that over to coaching. That's where the expertise comes into place, right? I give a nutrition meal plan. I give a set of macros. I give a workout. It has left and right boundaries. You don't need to understand the whys about it. Just go do it, right? Now, some people love that. And I still have people that will come and just be like, well, tell me what to eat, or just tell me the workout. There are people that are in that phase of their wellness journey that like to be told what to do. Just give me the left and right boundaries. Give me the rules, give me, the information, I'll run with it. Right. Which is good. Like I said, I think that has a phase, and you can see in, where that would have a phase in parenthood is we have to be able to set the rules and tell our kids what specifically to do at a certain time. Same thing over here in the wellness journey. We have to be able to provide the information so that people could go out and make those changes.
Do you find these people, they just phase themselves into each category, or is it more led by you? Like, are you kind of pushing them into the next phase without them maybe realizing it?
No, I think it's both in a way, but that's where I think the art of coaching comes into place, is you need to progress them into the next phase, right? And the big concept I kind of think of that is like when we start looking at internal versus external motivation. External motivation can work, right? You can think of it as like it's the quote, the hammer, or it's the negative thing, right? You're going to be in trouble, if you're late. You're going to be, docked points, or you're going to be docked pay, if you don't achieve X, Y, or Z. Or inside the Army, hey, you're going to be kicked out if you don't pass your, PT test. Like those are external motivators that are causing us to make a change. Versus internal motivation would be, I want to be on time because I have value in myself. And one of my values is to be on time, right? And to produce good work. One of my values is to be healthy and lead by the front. So that's the reason I work out, right? My value is to live a longer, healthier life. That's the reason I work out. And I'll be the first one to admit, younger Jeremy, a lot of times I was working out because I was training for something. So it was actually, external motivation. I was training for the Ironman, training for the bike race, training for the CrossFit competition. And it's not until this recent last decade that I've kind of changed that for myself into that internal motivation. Okay. So yeah, you got some people that will progress, right? Because they just want to, and they're ready for the next stage, from being told what to do to understanding and them making, some of the decisions. But a lot of times that's a role of the coach, is to have those conversations and get the client to want to make changes on their own and to choose the path that they're going versus just being told what to do. Right. And man, I've seen that so many times before where people just follow the meal plan, to a T, and they have success. But when the meal plan's done or the program's done, unfortunately, we see the pendulum swing the other way. They gain their weight back or whatever the case may be. So that's the reason it's so important in the coaching role, to go from, okay, the expert providing the game plan to the coaching role, getting the client to make choices because they want to, getting them to reflect on themselves and having them choose their path because it's in that internal motivation. It's their choice of why they're choosing certain things.
I feel like that's extremely valuable because I know, like, even for business stuff, I'll go meet with clients about like social media work and all that stuff, and it's very like, just tell us what we need to do, just tell us this, just tell us what to do so we can copy and paste it. And it's like, well, one day you're not going to be paying us to handle social media or go film videos. Like one of these days you're going to have to go buy a camera, or you're going to hire someone like me on your staff, and they need to go do this. But like, you need to have an understanding. And I think this is a good topic because I find myself really pushing myself out of a job in a weird way, even if it's 10 years down the road. Like, knowing this information is going to absolutely benefit you down the road, without you even knowing it. And maybe not even you, just, family members, kids, the kids for sure. Like, think about, like, as a new parent, you were an unhealthy eater for 20 years. Now you have a kid. Now you have a good relationship with food, and you can actually coach your child.
And we've talked about that a lot of times, like, especially like as teenagers, right? Like, we've had to set the rule that, hey, we eat protein with each meal before you eat anything else. And it's so cool because, once again, Brady is now 13 years old. We're moving from coaching to he's wanting to make his own choices. And then, of course, he comes back from spring football practice. Like, coaches want me to put on some, muscle tissue this summer. And I'm like, well, how are we going to do that? He's like, eat protein, right? So now that's now an sort of external because the coaches want it, but it's an internal choice for him now because he wants to play. Right. So, that's the cool aspect in all of it is, yes, we have these quote rules that we set as, the expert / the, you can call it commander if we're looking at military, or, the authoritative figure. But now it's moving to more coaching, inside of why we do it, right, inside of the kids, and hoping that it gets to where, okay, they understand the why and they choose to do it because they want to, from that aspect, right? No different than the coaching world. And that's a cool aspect. And the coaching aspect is, it lasts a long time, right? Because it may take someone a while, to learn things and to work on things because, once again, yes, I mentioned the internal, motivation that we're trying to get, but there could be other obstacles that we're working with someone to overcome, right? In that coaching aspect. So that, doesn't have a time frame like our kids do, as far as, okay, it's going to last, infancy, we're setting, or I'm sorry, toddlers, we're setting boundaries, older kids and the teenagers is coaching. And of course, once they graduate, go to college, it's not as much coaching, right? Now, and once again, it's fluid, but it moves more then to like what I like to call the consultant phase, and you guys should understand this. If, if any of you guys have been told what to do by your parents, once you're an adult, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, you're kind of like, I don't want your help. Right. But it is nice to ask for help. And I think that is what, when we talk about the consulting phase as a coach, my goal is to, yes, educate people, to where if they're not ready to be coached, or maybe they've never had a coach, I can educate them. They can take away the information that they need to do. It's like, okay, Roger that. All I need to do is X, Y, and Z, and I can produce results. I like that. To the coaching phase until we get to that maintenance, right? And when I say maintenance, they're healthy. They have a healthy body fat. They have healthy blood work. They're doing well, right? They don't need my services for accountability, coaching, anything like that. Then I become a consultant for them. They reach back out when they do have a question, whether that be on and I hate to say new diet because new trend of the diet. There we go. Right. Or peptides, because that's a hot one, or they're just aging and they have, hormone replacement questions. They come to me as a consultant to help answer that question, to see what my thoughts are, what I have, information I have, from that standpoint. So I just thought it was such a cool, like, parallel between being a parent and the phases of parenthood and the phases of coaching. Right. And as someone walking along their journey, I would encourage you to think about that, right? That's what you're doing, is you need to work with your coach and have choices sometimes, because it is okay to make mistakes. We can all think about being, teenagers or even young adults, and we make mistakes. We learn from that, right? But if we just have someone set and telling us what to do at all times, we never have the opportunity to learn our own. We never have the opportunity to get the internal motivation and make choices on our own. And that's very important for us to have in that wellness journey, so that we can maintain those habits long term, not just run a program because we're on a program.
Yeah, no, I can relate there. I think I would see it as like a collaboration, or even like a mentorship.
Yeah.
Like, even after maybe the last phase that you mentioned, like, even just I treat my mentors like that. Like, something pops in my head, like, oh, this person might know something, and you reach out real quick, and then you might not talk again for a week or 2 weeks
Yeah.
or a month. And then, the saying, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So I do my after this conversation, it kind of pops in my head, like, I've learned more by teaching other people in the last decade than I did in college, YouTube, or anything like that, just because of I'm going to have to go do the research. I need to go look up this. I need to watch a video. I need to do this, and then I'm going to have to go teach it. Yeah.
So, big takeaways I think, from this is, one, if you're a young coach and young into the career and wellness, understand that you don't know everything. You think that you do, and that's okay. Right. You got to practice, you got to implement. And as Reno just mentioned, I would teach, right? Even if you're not teaching anybody, prepare teaching lessons, right? Because then you're diving into information. You're like, okay, how can I make this complex item much simpler, right? Breaking it down. Okay. Move from that expert phase to the coaching phase. And the coaching phase is working with the individual, and individuals, man, are different because they're at different, learning curves. They're at different stages of change. There's different obstacles in lives. Like, there's so much going on there. Okay. And, I used to think as a young coach, like, well, if I can perfect the game plan, I can produce results. But the matter of fact is only so many people are just going to run the game plan without the coaching aspect. Very few people will just take the game plan and run with it, right? Take the rules, left and right boundaries, and run with it. So developing the coaching skills of having conversations, working with individuals, and being able to help them overcome obstacles and develop habits, that's where you're going to see long-term success. But understand that we want to get to long-term success where we're no longer a coach, and we might still have the title coach. Like, I got people on the app that I'm still their coach, but it's not like I'm actively working with them on a weekly basis. I just get the random message asking me about something, and that being the consultant phase. So, and then if you're on your journey, think about it as like, hey, nothing wrong with wanting left and right boundaries, but I encourage you to learn more and explore, and to work on habits, and to work where you don't need to be on a program to follow the program or to have success. That's when you know that you've made it habits, when you no longer feel like you're on a program and the things you're doing is keeping you at that healthy body fat range, healthy blood work range where you're thriving. Okay. And then young parents, hey, I'm still learning. I got in all phases right now, right? 13-year-old, 3-year-old. I guess I haven't made it to the consultant phase yet in parenting. But it's coming, it's going to be there, so I just, like I said, we had some time today. I wanted to do this podcast because I felt like it was a great message that was done in church, and I just related it over to coaching with building that course. I'm like, man, I want to educate on this because I think it can help, not only young coaches, but also people that are going on their wellness journey.
Yeah. If I can just reiterate one thing, especially for, the students that are listening to this in your class, is never stop learning. Even while you're coaching, it doesn't matter what status you've made. If you've reached your mountain peak that you've wanted to be since the beginning of whatever your journey is, keep learning. You're only as good as you are at the current day. So just keep, stay on top of it, and don't ever think that you're the best of the best. You can learn from the people that you are actually teaching.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I thought I was a really good coach at 35 years old. I'm a much better coach at 45.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee a decade from now, when I'm 55, I'll sit and say, hey, I'm better at 55 than I was 45. Because we continue to learn. You continue to pick up nuggets. You continue to just learn new things with practice. And that's the cool thing. So appreciate you, brother, hopping on here short notice. But like I said, I wanted to this was a great topic that came up on Mother's Day in church. And it hit for me because, it's like, man, there's such a parallel in what they were standing up there talking about with parents to coaches. And, just kind of bleed it together, mesh it together. And then hopefully, like I said, it hits our young coaches out there. It hits people on their wellness journey. And then maybe in the new parents, right? For the new parents out there, you kind of got something, like, oh, okay, that makes sense, from that aspect. So hope you guys have a great day. And if you need anything from Reno or I, please let us know, and hope you guys finish it out really well.
So